So you just got defeated, right? Or you woke up in the morning and you look online and there's like a comment about you, right? Like a really bad comment, like really like maybe it's not even true, it's a total lie, or it's somebody you don't even know. Maybe it's some crazy person that thinks you're, whatever in the CIA or whatever, or Illuminati, or maybe it's just a friend who is pissed off at you, or maybe it's, an outright like character assassination where someone is really trying to hurt you and your business. And you look at that online and you feel like, if you're anything like me, you feel like it's the end of the world. You wake up and you went to sleep, it was a great night, and then you wake up in the morning, you see this criticism, and it's like, your head starts to go, like, is this gonna hurt my business? Is it gonna ruin my business? What are people gonna think about me, And there's so many things that you deal with emotionally when that happens. And when I look online and I ask people for solutions, I just don't find what I want. A lot of people will say things like, well, they're just haters, right? Don't worry about haters, right? And maybe, to be honest, maybe these people that are saying that, they are very mature in dealing with criticism. And at that point in their life, they actually are immune and it doesn't really bother them. But most people, until they get to that point, unless you're running for a big public office or, you are a famous media celebrity, you generally don't have much experience dealing with hardcore online criticism. And I want to throw in this video also about just plain old defeat and loss where you feel like it's the end of the world, because I think it's the same feeling. In my life, I've had many different situations, and I want to bring up something. The first thing I want to talk about is my mom, actually. My mom's awesome, and she's an artist, and she really is a very creative person. And when growing up, she used to make for us like just every kind of food you can imagine. I mean, one day it's Iranian food, the next day it's this food with that food, and French food with this Japanese food, and she would mix it all up. She would make everything by hand. And when I was young, I didn't really appreciate it, but as I got older, I realized, holy moly, she cooks like unbelievable time in the kitchen and unbelievable attention to detail, right? And she took that when she was about 40 years old. She suddenly came to the family basically and said, I'm going to become an artist. And we were pretty surprised. We were all like, because she had never done anything like that before. And although looking back, her art was food, right? So actually she did do art, and we knew it. But it was kind of like, well, how are you going to get famous, or how are you going to get going, right? And this was back in like 1985 or 1984, when it was much harder to get going back then than it is now. So either way, she did it, and she's 40 years old. She goes back and gets her degree, finishes a 4-year degree in art, and then she gets a master's degree. Next thing I know, she's teaching art at my university, the same Cal State Fullerton where I was going to school. And then she started to have art shows. And, it was amazing. It was like this transformation she went through, right? And it always inspires me, by the way. Every time I try something new, I think back to those times when she had this unbelievable faith in herself to start something where there was no known facts outside that anybody could say you're going to break into the art world. But either way, so she did that, and she was successful, and she had some great shows. I went to her shows, and it just was awesome. I was just in a state of shock. I was like, this was so cool. Like it was cool to have a super cool mom doing art shows. I was like, this is great, and it got me interested in art, and I got our whole family. She motivated our whole family to get interested in art. Some people became artists, other people just create things like I do. But it's all tied into that. I believe it all started from that, because there was nobody talked about art before that. But so what happened? So then I woke up one morning and there was all this commotion in the house. I'm like, what is this? So it turns out the LA Times is in our house, and they were taking pictures of my mom's art. And I was like, I woke up, I was just like, what? Like, Mom, you're like in the LA Times? So I'm watching them take pictures in the garage, and they're doing this. But either way, what happened was the critic who wrote that, I believe it was that review, or it might have been another one, but I believe it was the LA Times. They wrote a really super mean review of my mom, her art. And it was like super mean. Just to give you an background real quick on this story, is she was doing eco art. So we lived over the beach, so she would go down to the beach, she would collect garbage and trash that had washed up, and she would turn it into art. She would make it into structures and paint around it and glue things together, and she was doing things. And it wasn't just art. It wasn't like, I'm gonna go become a rich artist. She was actually doing art that mattered, right? She was one of the first eco artists, right? And she was only using stuff that she found on the beach. And so it was really super cool, but this critic did not like her. And she said, basically like, this is the crazy lady picking up garbage off the beach kind of review. And that review just hit my mom in the stomach. And she went and threw her art away. Like everything that she had. She had art being rented at wealthy people's houses, where I considered wealthy people back then, but people were renting her art. It was showing, people wanted to see it. And it was blooming too. It was like all kinds of creative stuff was showing up in our garage, and people were coming over, and it was really cool. But that criticism just took the wind out of her sails, and I don't think she had any way to deal with it at the time. None of us were famous. None of us in the family could really talk to her and say anything like, hey, I know how you feel. Don't worry, it's going to be better tomorrow. Online criticism, at that time was newspaper, but it's same basic thing, is so hard to deal with that it really, I think it stops most people from doing things in their life, is the fear that someone's going to criticize you and call you worthless, right? And sometimes that very thing happens, that fear that you actually have, if someone just totally digs into you, actually happens. And that's happened to me also. But I learned a lot from my mom's experience, a lot. And I tried to save her art because she put it out on the driveway to get thrown away. But I went out there and I'm like, hey mom, we got to take this stuff in. Like I'll keep it. I want it. And then she said, no, it's got to go. Like it was like, she's not like that. She's not like a drill sergeant type of person, but I could tell, like if I took her art, she was going to be pissed off. Like she wanted to throw it away. It was done. And it was done in that part of her life. Now, she continued making art, she continued experimenting, but never again publicly, never again showing the world what she's capable of. She made many things for me. She painted a beautiful surfboard, a huge canvas painting, which is like the most beautiful thing, and that I had in my place in Tokyo. She made these beautiful, even stuff for our kids. She made these books with all the pictures in it, and they were just so creative, and they were so unique, And looking back, actually, when I was a kid, she used to make these cakes that were just like out of this world. We still have pictures. I won't post them below because my mom's too embarrassed, but she was really creative with everything she did. And that one critic, just like a brickbat to her knees, just took out all her ambitions to go public with her art, and it made her go private with her art. So every time I go home now, I go in the garage and I see, or in the art room in the garage, and I can see what she's working on now. It's always something brand new. It's always creative. It's amazing. Every time I go in there, I think it's sad that no one else gets to see this art, except for unless you come to her house and see it, right? But think of that. Think of one review, and it reminded me back to so many things in my life. And by the way, I'm telling this story because it really changed my life. Because I saw my mom get destroyed by one mean critic who didn't even know what he was talking about. I think one thing is when someone criticizes us, we assume they know what they're talking about. Like they must know what they're talking about, right? They think we're bad. They must be right? And that's what I'll give you. Something that happened to me recently. I made a video that went viral about recreating 9/11, and so I got, of course, a lot of hate mail, death threats. I got everything, but one was particularly interesting. There was a guy who I had mentioned it somewhere in my video, I guess, or one of my videos, that I speak Japanese and Chinese, and somebody wrote he was obviously a foreigner. He wasn't Japanese, but he could speak Japanese or write Japanese, and he wrote, "This guy doesn't speak Japanese. He's full of it. Don't believe anything he says." And so I woke up one morning and I see these comments on all my videos. It was the same guy. He just commented on all the videos and saying, like, it's not true, the guy doesn't speak Japanese. And so what do you think my reaction was? You probably think, oh, Paul's confident, right? He just woke up and he thought, this guy's crazy, and deleted it. No, what through my mind was, wait a second, because I have videos speaking Japanese online, so the same channel, right? So I thought, paulsailor.com, right? So I thought that my first reaction was, oh my gosh, this guy is like a language genius. He speaks Japanese, but like 10 times better than I do. Like he's more fluent, or he's got more vocabulary, and I wish I would have studied more kanji, the characters, and I wish I would have been more diligent back then of reading books and writing, and that was my first thought. I spent the next day thinking about why I never perfected my Japanese to absolute, what I considered like native level, and I was just like grinding about it. So finally I realized, all of a sudden it took me hours to realize, wait a second, this guy probably doesn't even know anything about me. He probably never even saw my Japanese videos. He's not actually criticizing me. He's just assuming that I'm lying, and that, you know, he's just putting it. He just goes on. He's the type of person who would just go and like comment on all the videos, like a policeman of the world type of guy. And so I thought, oh, maybe that's the case. So I took my Japanese video, which was actually related, and I put it as a link below the video the next day before I went to sleep. So I woke up in the morning. Then I realized, I talked to some friends, and they said, hey, you should take down his comments. So I did. I deleted his comments and I banned him from the channel. I woke up in the morning and there was comments again he had created a new channel, and he had comments on all my videos. And this time he said he really does speak Japanese. He speaks Japanese really well. And like what he had done apparently is he had gone in and seen the video that I speak Japanese in, and he had corrected his error, right? But I mean, I tell you that just like tore me up, because it's my sensitive part is like I want to be perfect, right? I'm not perfect in Japanese, right? I mean, I'm very fluent. I can manage a company, and a lot of my friends don't even speak English, either Chinese or Japanese speaking. And sometimes I'm very proud of my language abilities. Other times I'm super sensitive about it, and I feel like I'm just terrible. Like, even though my feeling doesn't match my reality, in other words. And so criticism can really hurt, even though it makes no sense. You know, even if it makes no sense. Criticism doesn't always make no sense, but if it did, like in this case, he didn't know who I was and he hadn't seen my other videos. He was just assuming I didn't speak Japanese, and that's all. And I lived there a long time too, and China too. So, so I guess the first thing is, now I'm giving you logical things to do, but after the logical things, we're gonna get to the emotional, because the emotional is much more important. But logically, the first thing you have to do, or I think you should do, is think about, does this person know me? Like, do they even know who I am? You know, is this just like, is it, like, I guess you categorize and say, is this some person on the internet? Or is this some person that met me before? Is this some guy I worked with before? Is this my ex-girlfriend? Is this one of my good friends? Who is this person? And to kind of, and then you can kind of say, wait a second, if this person's online, they might not even know anything about me. So I might have to educate them. Even though they wrote something really mean, I might, if I tell them more about myself, they might take it back or whatever. You know, they don't know me. They're in their own world, right? And they see my video. They don't like when people lie, so they think you're lying, and then they go crazy, right? So sometimes I'll do that. But emotionally is the key here. You know, people commit suicide over criticism and loss. You know, people obviously will throw their career away because they're so hurt by criticism. They will change careers. People will actually move cities. You know, I've seen all these things happen because people are so sensitive, or they're so hurt by a particular criticism, right? So I think the first thing you want to do the day is going to happen. Okay, this is the internet age, right? So the day is going to happen that you're going to wake up, nice morning, cup of coffee, and you're going to look online, or someone's going to send you a link, and it's like something really bad about you. Okay, something just bad, mean, right? And I tell you one mean one I had when one of my videos went super viral. Was I was talking about having a visa problem in Japan. They had messed up my visa, long story, and it's all fine now. But I had to leave Japan for a year, and I did that story, and it became super viral. It's still viral. People still comment on it every day. It gets tons of views, and basically, you know, people, they say you're crazy, you know, whatever. There's all these, you get everything, right? And you get a lot of sympathy too. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. But when one of the comments was somebody who knew me, and they said, this was super eerie, because they said, Paul, I know you. I worked with you. I hate you. You know, well, I'm glad what happened to you happened to you. And I could help you, is what he said. He said, I could help you because I have friends in the government, but I won't. And I was just like, that comment, like, oh, that was just like, man, at the time I was just like, whew, you know, it was like, it's one thing if a crazy guy, you know, but I actually believed this guy that he might know me. I thought, this guy, I must have known him. I must have worked with him. So these are the, you know, you never know what you're going to get. Like that, a box of chocolates, right? In this case, it's a box of crap. But you don't know what you're going to get when you're criticized. Sometimes a criticism can be very personal. And that was a really personal, because I mean, definitely this person did not like me. No question about that. So how did I deal with that? And how do I deal with, I've had death threats online. When I had the 9/11 video, I had death threats, and in fact, Anonymous, their real channel, actually contacted me on my Facebook and said they were fear for my life. And I was like, there's different things that happen when you're criticized, right? One is, can be just criticism, right? Like, you're a bad guy. The other thing is, what can the criticism lead to? It can lead to loss of revenue for your business. So for example, if you own a muffler shop and somebody writes that they had bad service, that can really hurt you. So I know a lot of business owners watching this, and you have a bad Yelp review, and it just almost like takes over your mind. Like, we're so weak when it comes to criticism. It's like, okay, one example, a friend of mine, he had somebody write something really bad about him online in Tokyo, and they put it on this website that was just specifically for like bad people, right? It's not there anymore, but they wrote about him. And so I went to work one day, and he's like, this guy wrote this about me. Did you see this? I'm like, no, I didn't see it. And it was like, it was just stupid, mean stuff. It wasn't any big deal. The guy, so I looked at it, and I was thinking, like, don't tell anybody. Like, no one's going to notice this comment if you don't tell everybody about it. But either way, he was on the rampage, and he told everybody, this guy wrote this about me. It's not true. And he spent millions of dollars in legal fees fighting to get that website taken down. And even in this case, it turned out it's a happy ending, because he got the website taken down, and he ended up succeeding in his next business, and he's doing very well today. But I just think that is such a risk. There's such a risk of our monkey mind. The monkey mind, the one that just keeps thinking thoughts. In Buddhism, it's the monkey mind, right? And you got to give the monkey mind something to do, right? And the monkey mind, once it gets this criticism, you start to feel like your world is closing, or it's the end. You know what I mean? Like, this is what everybody's thinking about. This is going to hurt everything. It's going to ruin everything I'm working for, and everything has no meaning because I'm going to lose the clients, and no one's going to believe me. And like, I'm not going to be able to. If you have a job, you're going to be like, I'm not going to be able to get another job. And then I think a lot of people, like, I even have friends who are not on Facebook because they don't want anything bad written about them, essentially, or anything that they said to be used the wrong way. I personally think that being open to criticism, like, I don't mean open like liking it, I mean like putting yourself open to it, okay, so that you do get criticized, right? By putting yourself out there is one of the very, very best things you can do for self-help, to improve yourself. Because when you put yourself out there, okay, when I put my videos out there, I put in my real self out here. I mean, these are not fake. I'm not selling anything in this video, right? I'm putting my real self in these videos. And when you do that, and you get criticized, what happens is there are good criticism too, okay? Okay, just to be honest, you're not gonna like any criticism, okay, online. It's scary. It doesn't matter if it's your best friend. If he criticizes you online or disagrees with you, it could be kind of a sensitive topic, right? But what it can do for you, okay, why I recommend so much opening yourself up to the haters is because what it does is you become a better person. How does that happen? Because, okay, when you read a self-help book, okay, you read a general self-help book, and whether it's a religious book or a self-help, Tony Robbins or somebody, you read that book and you're trying to imagine, like, if this was me, or what's me, what's not me, where would I fit in here? How could I change? How could I improve myself, right? When you put yourself out there, you're putting specifically your ideas out there. So if you misquote somebody, or if you have the wrong facts about something you say online, like it wasn't 1996, it was 1994, right? And if you do that, someone will say, this stupid idiot doesn't even know it's 1994, it's not 1996, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's a complete moron, he's a racist, he's a whatever, like someone's going to write about you, And what it will do is you're going to improve your game. So what's happened to me is I put my ideas out there, and then people actually contact me and comment, and they say, I agree with that part, but I think you're wrong on this part. And then we have a discussion about it. And a lot of times I actually learn something from people watching my videos. In fact, some of my favorite people are the people I met online watching my videos. And I'm not kidding. The reason why is because I'm putting my real self out here. So people that are drawn to my stuff actually are interested and like me, right? And those type of people are the type of people that I like. because they're looking for the truth. That's what I like to do. I like to search and look for the truth, right? So I like other people who are kind of like, I don't know if you call them truth seekers. That's probably a word with a lot of baggage, but that's kind of what I think of myself, is looking for the truth, what's going on, right? I want to know what's going on. I always want to know more. I always want to improve myself. I always want to get better. I always want to, like, that's just like my never ending goal, is to educate myself and improve myself, right? So when I put myself out there and I make a mistake, right, then it actually comes back to me and I can change myself, right? So one really good example is I wrote an article about electric cars, and I heard that it got to the desk of Elon Musk. I don't know if it's true, but it definitely got passed around a lot of electric car companies, and it got a lot of press. But the thing is, I kind of spent my wad with that video, because I'm not like an electric car expert, but I apparently had some ideas people liked, and they liked my article. And so then I didn't really have that much to write after. I might write later, but I mean, it's not my focus. It was just something I was thinking about. It was something I'm interested in. So I wrote it. But in that article, I had one mistake. I talked about GM. I didn't know the Bolt was purely electric. I thought the Bolt was the Volt at the time when I wrote that. So it wasn't the main part of the article, but it was just one little thing. But actually, people were pretty cool about it, actually, because they liked the rest of the article, and people were like, oh, by the way, helium doesn't explode. And by the way, the Hindenburg is not helium. And by the way, GM Bolt is actually purely electric. And because they liked my other stuff, and I was giving them something valuable, they wrote back to me, and it was like a friend writing to me, because I always say my email address in the video. So now I know more about those things I talked about. Now when I talk about that, my mind is clear, right? My mind is clear. My facts get clearer, and also I make friends who are also searching for the truth. Because when you're talking, okay, which is what videos are, when you're talking, you make a lot of errors when you're talking. And what happens is most people, when you talk, if you say something like, Bob went down there, and then everybody knows you're talking about James, nobody really says anything, because they're like, we know he's talking about James, so he just said Bob for some reason, right? And so nobody really says anything. But if you put a video up there and you make a mistake about two different people, and especially if they're different nationalities, people will just, someone will just say, this guy's a total idiot, he doesn't know anything. When actually this is a mistake. It's a very common verbal gaffe that everybody makes. So the more famous you get, the more of a public figure you get to be, the more that your words and your stuff is really analyzed, really, deeply, right? And especially when you make a video, because people can listen to it 2 times or 3 times, right? So they can actually get in there and really get deep into what you're saying, right? When you're listening in real life, you just listen one time, it's done. And did he say that? I think he said Bob. Did he say James? He said James. It's like he said, she said, right? But with a video, you're like putting it out there, and you're going to make mistakes in any video. You're going to make factual errors. You're going to make grammatical errors. You're going to, you're going to make verbal mistakes. It's going to happen. But what people appreciate about it is because you're putting, subconsciously, I think everybody knows it's difficult to make a video. It's difficult to go out there and say something in a coherent manner that makes their life better, that tells stories that makes their life better. So people appreciate it, but there are certain people who won't. And I guess the word everybody calls them these days is haters. Before it used to be not constructive criticism, which is basically the same thing. So it's basically saying that's a bad guy rather than I don't agree with that point, right? Or that guy's a total idiot, or that guy's a moron. That's not constructive criticism. Whereas constructive criticism is, it wasn't 60 miles a gallon, it was 40 miles a gallon. It wasn't $1 million for a house in Australia, it was 1.2 million, right? So it wasn't Victoria, it was whatever. So those are the things, your mind will have to separate, but your heart's not going to separate. Your heart will be like my mom. Your heart's going to be like, it just feels like a ton of bricks landed on you. When I'm not saying with every criticism you feel like that. I'm saying in your life, some defeat, some criticism, something's going to happen that's going to absolutely gut you. And I don't mean like gut you like I'm gutted on Facebook kind of gut. I mean like people consider suicide. People consider moving. People consider changing their name. They feel so bad. They feel so, if you find yourself in that kind of situation, the number one thing I don't think there's any one answer, but I think there's one thing that you should definitely do. And that's to immediately, 2 things. take a screenshot of whatever it is. We're talking about stuff online, and get a screenshot of it. Okay, make sure you get a save a screenshot. Then go talk to people. Send that screenshot to somebody, and then talk to people. Because what will happen is your mind, the criticism might not be so harsh, okay, but your mind might feel like it's the end of the world. Emotionally, your emotional mind will feel like you just got absolutely destroyed. But when you send it to somebody, they might say, they're not you, right? They're not connected to it. So they look at it and they go, actually, it's not that bad. He's actually saying good things about you too. Right? And you're like, no, he's not. He says I'm an Indian. And they're like, no, look, look at it again. And you have the facts because you have a screenshot of it, right? So get evidence, talk to smart people right away, and tell them. I think if you can't tell other people how you feel, tell yourself, okay? Like sit in your room and say, I feel like giving up. I feel like losing it all. I feel like moving. I should kill myself. I feel like killing myself. I should say, not should. I feel like this. I feel like that. And just honestly admit all your feelings. Like they're ridiculous, okay? Feelings are ridiculous. They don't have anything basis in reality, okay? But when you acknowledge that you feel, because here's what happens. They say, you tell somebody, oh, this guy said I'm an idiot, or that guy said, I'm an alien, or whatever, and then your friend will say, that's stupid, don't even listen to him, yeah. But that doesn't work, right? Because your mind is not like that. Your emotion, right? It's kind of like when you're in a bad traffic, you just almost get in a bad traffic accident, and afterwards, a lot of chemicals are released in your blood, and you feel like super amped up and like on edge for like another 20 minutes, even though nothing's going on, right? Once those chemicals are released, you're feeling that feeling for another 15, 20 minutes, maybe longer, right? So it's one thing here, and it's the other thing here. So here is really super, super important when it comes to criticism. Criticism, defeat, online comments, mean comments, it's be honest with yourself. This is one of my friends told me in my 12-step group. He said, Paul, if you can't be honest with me, that's fine. He said, but at least be honest with yourself. And that was some of the best advice I ever got, actually. Scott, back in 1987, told me that. And I was like, be honest with yourself. Because it took all the pressure off me being honest. Because I thought he was going to say, if you're not honest with me, get out of here, or you're no good, or whatever, But he said, no, don't worry. That's okay. But at least be honest with yourself. And I thought, wow, I can do that. If I focus on that, I can really be honest with myself. And what happens when you're honest with yourself, then it's quite easy to be honest with the world, or you might find that you're not ready, and that's fine too. But at least you've been honest about it. So if your feelings are super twisted and you feel like completely gutted, and like if somebody's bullying you in school, or somebody wrote something bad about your restaurant, or somebody wrote something that's bad for your professional life, or some girl wrote something but really bad about you online, or if you're just afraid of that, you're thinking like one of these days someone's going to write something about my business and it's going to ruin me. That's a lot of it too, is like defeat. You don't know what's going to happen, right? You don't know when you're going to get that comment, you're going to get that story, right? So you prepare for it, but in a bad way, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? So be honest that you're making these crazy ideas in your mind. Don't try to cover it up. Don't try to buck up. On this one, do not buck up, okay? Do not buck up. Be super, super honest and get it all out. If you like to write it down. Write the crazy ideas down, like free flow ideas, like back in 6th grade when you had the creative writing class. Just start writing down all the crazy thoughts going through your mind. And when you get them on paper, I don't write them down usually, but I in my mind I do. And I realize, oh, this is crazy. Why would I hurt myself over this? This person doesn't even know me, or it's not that serious, or maybe I'll say, yes, I still feel gutted. Even though I wrote it down, I still feel it. And that's more honesty, right? That honesty, you are what do you call it? We evolved for millions of years from very basic life forms. We fought off bears. We fought for food. We probably murdered, our ancestors probably murdered people. We've been through wars. We've been through so much stuff. Freezing cold. My relatives are from Finland. There's freezing cold. You are capable of things you don't know. So when you put it out there and honest about it, you are capable of overcoming these things. Just you. Not even with any book, or with any video, any friend or teacher, or anything, you're capable of way more than you think. So when you put it out there, your mind immediately goes to work about how to solve it, right? So you could do this. You could say, okay, I feel like moving cities. I feel like never dating again. I feel like closing my business and selling everything. I feel like killing this guy. I feel like hiring a hitman. Whatever it is that I feel so angry. I feel like hiring a hitman. Right? Whatever it is that you feel, you write it down, and then you could turn it around and say how to not close my business. And come up with ideas. You could say, well, you various ways that you can deal. But what I'm saying is you're capable. You're capable. But if you're not honest with yourself, if you try to say that you're above it, or it's like, I would never do that, or this is no big deal, and then it keeps coming up, and you find yourself plotting revenge and looking online, and you find yourself not sleeping, that's a sign that you need to get more honest about it, about how you feel about this criticism, regardless of how small it is or how big it is, right? It's just how you feel about it. That's all that matters. When I got the death threat, it didn't really influence me that much, actually. I honestly thought, bring it on. This is what I thought. This is my reaction. I was like, bring it on, you piece of crap. Come on, try. That's why I felt like. I was looking down the street like, come on, let's go. Who wants to do it? Who wants to try to kill me? It's not gonna be easy. I've been in a lot of situations in my life, and that was my reaction to that death threat. But when I got the bad comment in Japan from the person I thought knew me, man, that really hurt. I was like, geez, somebody really hates me out there. Why do they hate me so much? What was it? What's the feeling? And often, obviously, when you get into the logical part of it, the reason why people sometimes hate you or whatever is often because of some other emotion. Okay, so for example, jealousy or envy. You might have something they don't have, and it causes them to want it, right? And that causes them to not like you and to be angry at you, right? So the last thing I'll say is I've had many situations online where I've been criticized very hard, okay? Very, very hard for various things. Either videos, or I post a lot, I write a lot, I put things out there. And so I get a lot of criticism. And what I found for me, what works for me, is to really calm down and to look at the criticism and to come back positive. It won't work for everybody, but it really works for me. You can go back and read my LinkedIn comments or whatever. And when someone will say something like, whatever, he's bitter, and I'll just go and explain myself and say, I think that, and I'll really give thought to this comment. When I get a bad criticism, I don't just put something on there like easy. I actually take the comment and I don't leave it in the box there, Facebook or whatever, LinkedIn. I'll go to a text app and I'll start rewriting it until I finally get the right tone where I admit where I was wrong about something, maybe, or admit I didn't know something, because there's always something, not always, but there's often something that's true in there. So I find that, I admit that, and then I go ahead and explain why I had my point of view, right, or why I think this. And what has happened to me many, many times personally, I can't guarantee it. I don't know how you I don't know who this is, and I don't know the exact situation you're going through, but often what happens is I win the haters over. I win the haters over because I don't respond with hate. Because it just doesn't. The whole reason why I put myself out there is to learn, right? I'm learning from you. I'm learning from your experiences. I'm watching. I'm learning from the interactions with the communications, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's like I feel like so lucky that I'm able to put myself out there, and then to find people like me, who have similar goals, and then also to improve myself. It's an unbelievable thing. I'm 51 years old. It's unbelievable to be able to do that. Instead of most people I shouldn't say most people. It's sometimes what people do when they kind of crawl up into a ball and they start to avoid people or avoid things, right? Instead of putting yourself out there and going for it. And the last thing I'll say is the classic song that always gets me going is Midnight Train to Georgia. Gladys Knight and the Pips. And it's the story, I think you probably know it. I'll put it down below, but it's like the guy goes to LA and he fails to become a superstar, right? And then she's like, he's going back to Georgia and she's going to go back with him, right? So he really didn't lose everything because the woman obviously loves him and was going back with him. So, but I always think of that guy, actually. Whenever I hear that song, I always think of that. And he went out to LA, he was embarrassed, he was defeated, right? I'm sure he got a lot of criticism, right? It's all part of the defeat. And he was said no to, right? Whether you're a salesman, you can relate to this, right? He was said no to, he was defeated, he was criticized, he was kicked out, he lost his money, he sold his car, and he was going back to Georgia with nothing, trying to salvage his life, right? That was what she wrote the song about. But I doubt it, to be honest. I doubt it. I think what happened was he was the kind of guy who was going for it. He was freaking going for it. I mean, think about it. You're in Georgia, you're an unknown person. You go to LA trying to become a superstar, right? What kind of person is that? That's a real go-getter, right? And maybe he failed that time, right? Maybe he got a call 6 months later from somebody who wanted him to be in a movie or whatever his goal was in Hollywood, right? To be a star, whether it was a singer or a movie. But maybe one of his contacts called him later. Maybe it wasn't a failure. The other thing was his like I say, his lady came with him. That's awesome. She gave up everything in LA and she followed him back to Georgia. And then the last thing is, here he is back in Georgia, and what kind of guy is he now? Is he the same person who just sat around, by the gas station complaining about life? Is he the same person? Was his failure a failure? That guy went to LA to be a superstar, and he came back, and his girlfriend wrote a song that became one of the best known songs of all time. And he's a different person now. That guy's a different person. I bet you what happened is 6 months later, that guy was back in LA. He was in London. He was doing something. He was recording his own songs. He was going for it. That's the kind of guy he was, right? So don't be afraid of defeat. Don't be afraid of criticism. Put yourself out there. That's what makes you stronger. That's what makes you better, is doing that. Because the very process you're putting yourself into is a painful process. And if you let yourself avoid it, you will, because that's human nature. That's why you have to put yourself out there, let it come in, deal with it, and evolve to a better you, right? And that's what it all comes from. So thanks for watching. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel if it's interesting. Love to hear any comments, anything good or bad. I'd love to hear any criticism. I love it. Sometimes I don't, but I still do, because it's the only thing that allows me to see myself from the outside, and I really appreciate it. So either way, thanks for watching the video. So my website's paulsalo.com, paulsalo.com, and feel free to read anything you like. And if you want to contact me, it's paul@paulsalo.com.